If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Khalid Muhammad in Pakistan from Command 11, aka Single Ot 711. Congratulations, whoever pinned him with that name on him, by the way. I love it. And below him, Jeff MD, our in-house CIA operative, author extraordinaire, affectionately known as 007.
And this week, Rattlesnake Wrangler.
Yes, we are a multi-talented group here, to put it mildly. Anyway, tonight our main topic is post 9/11 2.0 terrorist attacks and discussing the connection between cartels and foreign state actors. IRGC would be a great example. And this funding has gone on for a long time. You got Hezbollah in the mix. So it's not something new, but it's something that we expect to pick up when we get past 9/11 2.0 and the country is in tatters, for lack of a better word. But before we do that, we're going to hit the conflicted question of the night. If you're not familiar with this, conflictedthegame.com. These are, oh, geez, we're missing Cleat off the stage. There we go. There are 14 card decks. I'm missing Jeff too. Golly, he was on my left. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. My blind eye, by the way. Anyway, conflictedthegame.com, third time's a charm. They're 14 card games, and all of them are set in a post-apocalyptic setting, and 99% of the questions have some element of morality to them, hence the name Conflicted. So tonight, your bug out location is far off the beaten path, but you feel you need to put something as a barrier to discourage people from heading down your way. There aren't enough materials to build a physical barrier. It has to be a psychological one that would cause people to turn away just from seeing it. What kind of psychological barrier would you build, and how would it be effective? That's a good one. So I tacked a number of things onto the beginning of the SITREP, Khalid, before we get into your updates, you know, what's happening in Pakistan and Afghanistan over the past 36 hours. This first one here is pretty crazy. Check this out. Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office has debuted the first self-driving police cruiser equipped with a deployable drone. The vehicle, named PUG, features license plate recognition, thermal imaging, and 360-degree cameras. PUG, or Police Unmanned Ground, has AI-driven patrol functions, real-time analytics, and first responder support capabilities, and will be able to operate itself for 16 hours a day, according to CBS. The PUG allows us to explore how technology can keep people safe while making the best use of our resources, Sheriff Rosie Cordero Stutz said. Deputies remain at the heart of the mission, and the PUG is here to support them. 2 minutes, 34 seconds. I'm not going to play the whole video, but I'll play a good portion of it. It's kind of interesting. I'm kind of getting this RoboCop feel, though, to be honest with you.
If you look past the flashing lights and logos, it's clear this is no ordinary police cruiser. This prototype SUV was designed to launch a drone, read license plates, and send live infrared video back to HQ, all without needing a police officer behind the wheel. The Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office says this is the nation's first autonomous police vehicle. The South Florida Department is rolling out the experimental vehicle thanks to funding from the Policing Lab.
What we're ultimately trying to do is to give the sworn officers the capability to make the best decision out there.
For now, Miami-Dade will essentially take the vehicle on a PR junket, seeking community input before it regularly patrols neighborhoods. If and when that day arrives, designers say this vehicle will offer a lot.
They don't need to be focused on driving and looking for animals, children, pedestrians running out into the road. The vehicle's going to watch those vulnerable road users and let the officer look for crime.
The easy-to-operate tethered drone gives police a bird's-eye, up-close view, even in the shadows. The car can also patrol targeted areas, deterring bad actors without Sheriff Rosie Cordero Stutz needing to send actual deputies.
I would probably say that this vehicle will allow 5 to 10 deputies to go about other business that they might otherwise not be able to do.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. But pretty cool technology at the end of the day.
I think it's one step away from Ed 209 from RoboCop. Remember the one that malfunctioned and shot a bunch of people?
Yes, I do.
But what do you climb stairs?
What do you think of the tethered drone, though? That's pretty slick. So it's not susceptible to RF at all, like radio frequencies. I thought that was kind of slick.
It doesn't get caught up in lines across the road like sneakers.
Yeah. No, you can move that into a hostile situation and use that drone to give you, over the horizon picture.
Yeah,
you know where everybody is.
I like the way that the housing opened up on it as well. It was pretty slick. So you're going to send me one, right, Uncle Khalid?
I meant buy one when I get to the U.S. That's
ask
really
them
cool.
to send one for you to review.
Correct. Just send it. Just send it to me, Khalid, and I'll look after it for you. All right. Next one up from our friend Sarah Adams. We have a handful of her tweets up because they're relevant to everything that's been going on recently here. Found out today the FBI is going around calling Al-Qaeda's homeland plot clickbait. They're literally undercutting the assessment of ODNI's National Counterterrorism Center and discouraging communities from preparing. But sure, tell us again how the organization has been reformed. Jeff, you got to take a run at that.
Well, you can't reform an organization by snapping your fingers. You've got to go through and root out the bad actors without getting rid of the good guys. So no matter how many people you can, there's always going to be the one or two you miss. And I think the problem the Bureau, with what you're seeing here with the Bureau, is it's a not invented here mentality. It's not from us, therefore it must be crap. And I saw it with them a lot when it came to intel work with the agency. We would have we'd have intel on an attack or something like that, and they would go, well, our people aren't saying that. Well, your people don't have the access to the same players that our people do. Unless you're running assets, in the middle of frickin' Saudi Arabia, which you're not, you wouldn't have it.
Yeah, interesting for sure. Khalid, next one up is for you. Let me get it just pulled up here. And we actually touched on this privately a couple of weeks ago. Read this over. You will be that much smarter against the enemy, from Sarah. And then when you click through Apex Guard, there's a download here for the Al-Qaeda training manual. And it's a pretty interesting document. Khalid, we wrote a short ebook. You and I wrote a short ebook. I hate to even call it an ebook. It's 12 pages, and it's downloadable off of our Substack. But give our audience the high-level overview for the people who have not downloaded it and read our summary.
Okay. I'm going to start off with Sarah's post because it's the Manchester Guide. This was written back in 2007 or 8. It's written by Al-Qaeda for lone wolf attackers. How to pick a place to live, how to pick a safe house, how to move. It's tradecraft, very easily put out. You might remember, Chris, I sent you an Al-Qaeda training manual that was quite in-depth, where they talked about counterintelligence and how they move and how they train. This is the updated version. There's another Al-Qaeda manual that's come out in 2016, 2017 that a lot of people are having trouble getting their hands on because they're keeping that one very close to the vest. The guide that we put together is a top-down view that takes you through all the information with all the BS cut out. Because when you read one of their guides, it's got a lot of propaganda written into it that gets you excited emotionally. And we've taken all that emotion out and given you a very simple guide where you can read through and understand what the attack is going to look like, what you can do to prepare for each stage of the attack. And there's a guide. I think there's a checklist for tradecraft in there as well.
There is.
For those who don't know, tradecraft is what spies use out in the field. So it's a word. Well, I can't just say I mean, Chris bombed me the other day when I said ISR. He goes, by the way, ISR. So I'm going to blow you there and go, okay, tradecraft.
Okay.
But it's field operations for anyone who's out. I mean, police officers use it as well, but it's typically used in the intelligence world. And tradecraft is something that we firmly believe in keeping as secret as possible, because when people figure out what your tradecraft is, then, well, you're blown. There's a couple of interesting books that if you've got time to read them, Kurt Weldon wrote a book. I have to remember the name of it. The coming terror or something, the coming attack or something, where he covers all of the potential opportunities that the terrorists can use to hit the U.S. And it's quite a good book. I've got a copy. I'll pop in the Guardians group. So whoever's in that group will get a copy of it as well.
Right on. Appreciate that.
Can I take a run at the post you gave Jeff? Because that really takes me off.
I'm getting some weird feedback. I don't know if it's or somebody else's, but
It may be me. I'm messing with my mic.
yeah,
If you remember, Chris, last week we heard that the Dallas police were saying that the FBI's office in Dallas was saying that this isn't a credible threat, and we both talked about it offline in a lot of detail. To find out now, and Kash Patel did an interview the other day. I posted under Sarah's comment. He did an interview the other day saying, social media is full of so much clickbait. And I posted and went, when did social media become the purview of the FBI? That they should be looking at what clickbait is. And now I understand what he was calling clickbait. When I saw Sarah's post, I was like, now I get it. So what you're telling us is that Kash Patel is the be-all and end-all answer for counterterrorism and law enforcement. I don't think so. Kash has blown enough investigations. And if you look at what the FBI has done since 2001, you have paid terrorists, you have trained terrorists just to entrap them to get your numbers up. You have not caught a crime. Even with Charlie Kirk, the amount of misinformation you gave us on Charlie Kirk was just unbelievable.
how about claiming that the FBI solved the file when the kid to his dad? And we released the picture. So
Actually, they didn't. I think local cops released
cops,
the picture, and then his dad dimed him out.
The FBI did release the picture, but already by that point in time, the kid had confessed to his father and said he was going to commit suicide.
Yep.
And then the FBI released the picture, and then the FBI, when the father told the son, Tyler Robinson, to turn himself in, claimed, well, see, look, we released the picture and we got him.
Yeah, you talk to any local law enforcement who has worked with the FBI, and by local, I mean anything below the FBI. Once they get involved, the standard reply or response is, we'll take it from here. They'll take all the information somebody else collected and say, okay, we'll take it from here.
Yeah. Well,
just in time for the press conference.
Keith Graves has spoken at length on Survival Dispatch News in the past that, he served for 30 years in the Bay Area. And when he retired, he moved to America. So he moved from the Bay Area to Idaho. That's his line, not mine. He's a drug and gang interdiction SME. So he got paid to fly around the country and train FBI and down. Did some international stuff as well. And he hated teaching the FBI. And it's one of the reasons why he stopped doing it, to focus on Christian warrior training, because every single time he had a session with the FBI, he said, look, these are cops who have no experience. They have no hands-on experience. They have a degree, and that's all they need to get hired, a degree in whatever. And they don't know shit from Shinola. And every time Keith delivered a seminar or workshop for them, at least one of them would go complain to their superior that Keith Graves was using politically incorrect words, and he spoke out against DEI and shit like that. And he got tired of defending himself on it. So he said, screw you, I'm not doing it anymore.
A lot of the old FBI guys, and I have some good friends in the FBI, but a lot of them came in and they were state troopers. They came from other law enforcement into the FBI. The ones that are the biggest pains are the ones that came right from college, and they have degrees. They're either attorneys, and a lot of them are CPAs because of financial crimes. They aren't street cops. They have no street sense. And I have a really good friend. He was former agency and he went to the bureau, but he did a lot of street stuff for us, not law enforcement, but he worked the street. He was out there, meeting people and recruiting them and stuff like that. He turned out to be a really good FBI agent because he had that perspective. But you get these ones, they come right from the classroom straight to Quantico out into the field, and they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground.
Well, Keith and I have discussed this at length, and he said that was absolutely the case in the past. But today, with the exception of a handful of outliers, they have no experience. They didn't come from being state troopers.
No, that's the young ones. Yeah.
They have a law enforcement background now.
It's completely different demographic now. So let me get the next one teed up. And I put this one in here for a specific reason because we spoke on drones so much last night. I mean, it was the primary target, but check this out. Belgian police foiled jihadist plot involving drone-mounted explosives. Whenever I see something like this, my first thought is, for every rat that you see, there's 100 that you don't. And the fact that they caught a jihadi fixing to do this means that there's 100 more that they didn't catch and that are going to do this. So the only reason I put this up, I didn't put it up for discussion tonight. I just figured it would be a good segue based on last night's topic. So
they targeted the prime minister. They targeted the prime minister of Belgium with that.
Right. Serious stuff.
Yep.
So, Khalid, I'm going to come to you on this one. Calculated miss. Targets were elsewhere, but the message was delivered. This was in response to ghosts of governments past.
Yep.
Wonder why no one is talking about Pakistan bombing the absolute shit out of Afghanistan, particularly Kabul, and they somehow missed Bagram Air Base. And then you responded to them. So now this is in your wheelhouse, your backyard. Give us the latest on this.
Well, last night we hit Jalalabad, we hit Khost, we hit Kabul, we hit Patika. We have crippled the TTP on the Afghanistan side. The press conference that the army had today, they didn't say that we got the leader of the Taliban, the TTP, but he made enough of a indication that he's forcing the Taliban to admit that we've got him. And I understand the logic behind it, and I'll explain that. Okay. By forcing the Taliban to admit that we got Nurwali Masood in Kabul in a safe house, that will create a lot of tension between the Taliban and the TTP, because they believe that the TTP is protected under the Taliban's umbrella. But if we can take out your leader in Kabul, that will create a lot of tension between both those groups. And the second thing is, a lot of people said, how did we hit Kabul? Because Kabul is a protected airspace. We had clearance from 6 different countries to do what we did last night.
Why is it designated protected airspace?
You've got the presidential palace right there. We were about 5 miles away from the presidential palace is where we hit Nurwali Masood's house. And it was a coordinated strike. They had a ground team in Kabul. When they hit the safe house, there was a team of commandos that went in and opened fire. So the target was going to be taken out either way, whether it was the missile or it was opening fire. We were going to get the target. We are currently bombing Afghanistan right now. We're not stopping. They carried out an attack on a police training center today. 50 police officers were killed. 7 terrorists. In Pakistan.
Wow.
50 police officers are dead. And 7 terrorists. 7 terrorists took out 50 cops.
That was TTP then?
Yeah, that was TTP. That was TTP. And it was a 3-hour siege.
For the benefit of our audience, we've got a lot of new people who've been following us. Who are the TTP, just for our new audience?
Okay, the TTP in the West, you understand them as the Pakistani Taliban. The TTP is the Tariq-i-Taliban Pakistan, but in the West they're referred to as the Pakistani Taliban. So you have the Afghani Taliban, you have the Pakistani Taliban.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Clete. I appreciate that. So I have a few more of Sarah's posts up on this, and I'm going to go through them and let both of you comment on them. So the first one, lots of early chatter that Pakistan's military just took out the head of TTP. Mufi Noor Wali Masood in Kabul. The area the vehicle was in is the same general area where Masood uses a guest house provided to him by the MOD, Ministry of Defense, I assume, and MOI, is that Ministry of Intelligence? Interior, okay, of Afghanistan. We have our teams in Kabul looking into facts. We'll report what we learn. Second one, early report is that Pakistan's military struck both the guest house for Masood and his vehicle, meaning casualties will likely include more TTP or terrorist leaders than just Masood if the house, like the reported vehicle, was occupied. And the last one, we have so far confirmed at least one of the strikes in Kabul killed members of TTP. In addition to striking in Kabul, the Pakistani military has reportedly conducted airstrikes in Patika and Kaust since the TTP was made an official Al-Qaeda affiliate when its military chief, Mufti Muzahim, joined the group and became a key member of Al-Qaeda's senior shura. It's highly likely that tonight's strikes also killed Al-Qaeda members, which is rather interesting. So finish your thoughts on this, Khalid, and then I'm going to get Jeff's input after you.
Look, the guest house they were in, it's a little bunker area. I've actually seen this location myself. There's 3 guest houses. One is used by the TTP. One is used by Al-Qaeda. The strike hit both houses. So the reason we think the Taliban's not saying anything, because if they say it, their credibility is gone with the terror groups that count on them for protection. Okay. We know to this point that Noor Wali Masood has been taken to the hospital. Last night, he was taken to the hospital. Very serious wounds. We have heard that he is gone. He has been taken. His 2 next in line, the successors that were considered, Samirullah Masood and Khalid Masood, have also been killed in the strike. In Khost, we hit Hafiz Gul Bahadur, which was supposed to be about 45 days ago. There was a meeting between the Taliban, Haqqani network, and the TTP, and they sat down Hafiz Gul Bahadur and Noor Wali Masood and said, "We want Hafiz Gul Bahadur to take over the TTP." We hit his house as well last night. So there could be a big body count that comes out, and the Taliban is really worried about saying anything, because if they admit it, you have lost credibility. And Pakistan is right now talking about, we've had drones in the air all night. We have had drones in the air all day. We did helicopter strikes early morning, 6 a.m. We did helicopter strikes inside of Afghanistan. We are looking to take as much of their leadership out as possible. And there is a possibility we hit Kandahar, and that would mean taking out the main Taliban leadership.
Interesting. Jeff, this seems like a pretty major escalation of things. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's clear Pakistan is doing a little bit more than just sending a message. The fact that the Taliban doesn't want to admit that these guys are dead, there's a legitimate tactical reason for that, or strategic reason, actually. To hit a safe house knowing who's in it means you have on-the-ground intel. You can't fly over a house with a drone and see who's inside. It doesn't happen that way. So that meant they've got intel, which means to their, to both the Taliban and their terrorist allies that, okay, we've got a leak somewhere. There is somebody inside who is feeding information to the people trying to kill us. And what that does is really, really, really ramps up the paranoia. So the Taliban may not say anything, so they can say, well, I was just lucky. They hit a complex. The guy happened to be there, bad luck. But if they know it was targeted and they kind of admit that it was targeted, then what they're admitting is that, okay, for all you paranoid guys, you have a really good reason to be paranoid. And then it becomes infighting. Was it your guy who dimed us out? Was it your guy who dimed us out? And they're going to start, doing the little cannibalism thing, which for us is great. Let them eat their own. I like that stuff. You sow that dissension, kind of like when the Israelis did the pay drop. Man, if you were Hezbollah, you didn't trust anybody.
For sure.
Because who gave you the pager? Well, it was someone in the organization. It was only later when the details of the op came out that it really was brilliance by the Israelis. But until then, everybody in Hezbollah was pointing fingers at everybody else.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. So the last post related to tonight's SITREP before we get into the main topic is there's a clip off of CNN. Another senior Democratic aide said, as long as the public perception is in their favor, the party will not concede short of planes falling out of the sky. So Caroline Levitt replies to it, while Democrats are now saying unless planes are falling out of the sky because of the air traffic controller shortages, they will not end their government shutdown. They don't have the public support either. I don't know what the hell they're smoking. And then Sarah, replied, we will have planes falling out of the sky if we don't increase efforts to screen for Al-Qaeda's invisible bomb, which no one seems to be taking seriously. When I heard that before anything broke on CNN and heard that we have like a skeleton crews of air traffic controllers, I thought to myself, holy crap, talk about a vulnerable time for Al-Qaeda to step in. What are your thoughts on this, Jeff? Why are they not declared, what's the word, like essential or something essential. Like that?
Well,
Yeah.
I think a lot of them are. I mean, you're going to keep the air traffic control system going, but you know, even when I was in CIA, I lived through shutdowns, and case officers were declared essential, but other people in the office were not. Finance people, support people, and they got all offended because why aren't I essential? And it's like, dude, take the bonus. You get a paid vacation. I still have to work. So there's always going to be essential, non-essential in any office. But I'm more worried about TSA and airport security than I am air traffic control, because air traffic control, you can always just deny takeoffs and stack them up and stretch things out. But security is what keeps the bombs from getting on the plane in the first place. That is the big danger. Planes don't blow up in the sky because of air traffic control issues unless they collide. They blow up in the sky because of on the ground security failures.
Yeah, appreciate that. Cleet, I want to get you to weigh in on it. What does this do to your thoughts as far as potential attacks on airplanes are concerned?
Well, look, Jeff's right. TSA is the big target. I know there were 2 airports where they didn't have air traffic controllers for 12 hours at all. I mean, literally, there was nobody in the tower. That is a big scare. And if TSA is cut down, without the microwave scanners, these bombs are going to get on the planes. And you've got people that are already infiltrated inside the TSA that can plant things right now, and somebody can pick them up once they've cleared security in the airport. There are so many security issues right now in the U.S. I mean, before we went on air, I was talking to Jeff. I said, you've got so many things kicking off in the U.S. now that you don't know which one to watch. I mean, you're headed towards trouble, and you're pushing yourself there. It's not that you're slowly going, but you're literally shoving yourself towards a lot more trouble.
I appreciate that.
Well, there's also an issue, this thing that you don't have an airport doesn't have ATC for 12 hours. ATC is generally 99% of what they do is scheduled commercial flights. If there's not a scheduled commercial flight for 12 hours, you really don't need ATC for those 12 hours. You can get by without it. And a lot of smaller airports, you can click your mic 3 times and the landing lights come on because there's no one in the tower anyway. That's pretty common at small airports.
Interesting.
So it's the big airports you got to worry about.
Yeah, but the big fear is TSA, Jeff. You hit the mark on the first one when you said TSA is the big concern. Because when you decrease security inside the airport, you've made yourself vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly top tier security to start with, as far as TSA is concerned. So that's the final part of tonight's SITREP. But before we get into the main topic, there was a discussion. There's been several discussions recently in our private signal chat for guardians with regards to concealed carry, some for women, some for men, some different products like the flashbang bras for women. But my wife is very thoughtful. She got me this new redneck shirt. It's got a hood on it. I love it. It's awesome. I wear these types of shirts frequently. I changed the camera angle because I found these, move that out of the way. I found these concealed carry shirts. This is obviously plastic because we're not allowed to show a real gun on a live feed, but it takes 2 seconds to pull it out. This is a Glock 19 plastic gun. Attention, YouTube AI, not a real gun, plastic. Don't give me another freaking strike because I discussed firearms. Anyway, these shirts are really economical. They're cheap. Check them out. So they're $23 for the style. This is the one I'm wearing that has the sleeves cut off, but you can get them with a deeper cut, like a wife beater. You can get them with full, t-shirt sleeves, etc. Here in Florida, this brand, make sure you look at the brand, Lilcreek, Lil Creek concealed carry shirts. I brought in a bunch of them, and some of them were way too hot to wear here in Florida. Like I dang near melted, even when I put a really thin shirt over top to conceal it. But this is a super comfortable way of carrying on body. You don't have to worry about shooting yourself in the groin. And, on that particular topic, one of the guys who's been on our team for a long time, he's in the background, Tyler White is his name. He calls me a couple of years ago. Listen to this one. I don't know if I told you guys this. He calls me a couple of years ago, totally freaked out. He was at the range, indoor range, and this guy comes out of one of the private ranges where it's like a stall, screaming, I need a paramedic, need a paramedic. They didn't have anybody on prem who knew anything about first aid. Tyler's like, I've got training. He goes in, and this guy is screaming his head off. He was practicing drawing from appendix, and he shot his equipment off. He blew his parts off. And the guy is saying to Tyler, he's like, I just got married. We're going to have kids. Make sure you pick it up so they can sew it back on again. There was nothing to pick up. It was gone. It obliterated it, completely gone. Tyler has already got PTSD from, serving overseas. That whole incident really messed him up. So obviously you can't put a tourniquet around something that doesn't exist. So he's got his hand stuffed in there until the paramedics arrived. This style of carry like that, no worries about shooting yourself in the junk. Much more comfortable when you're sitting down and nobody can tell that you're carrying. There will be no printing. It's a pretty cool thing. So I just wanted to share that only because it's come up. Another quick update, just I shared in the signal chat earlier. So remember the guy who showed up a few weeks ago at my door on a Sunday morning and was casing our place? So we've had another guy show up twice at the door now, doing the exact same thing. Walk up to the front door, survey everything, and then walk away without knocking on the door. And the last time he was here, I almost caught him, but he took off. Today, I go out to the mailbox. There's a guy sitting at the end of my driveway, blocking my driveway in a car, shooting video of my property. As soon as I get to the driveway, he peels off, maybe goes an eighth of a mile down the street, does a U-turn, hauls ass back to me, and starts screaming at me why I'm videoing him. I said, you're videoing my property. You don't live in this neighborhood. Why wouldn't I? And he told me to F off, and he took off. He did another U-turn, came back to scream at me a second time, went an eighth of a mile down the road, and he's yelling at me, there's an estate sale here, and I'm here for this. Pulls into a driveway. A girl comes running out of the house with a box, jumps in the car and takes off. I think they were ripping off the neighbor, to be honest with you. I've got videos of the whole thing. So I don't know if we're being cased or if somebody's pissed off at what we're broadcasting on Survival Dispatch News, but that's 3 now inside of 3 weeks, 5 total incidents. 5 total incidents. I'm convinced at least the one guy was paid by somebody to try and figure out what we've got here. So anyway, I'll get off of that topic. We'll get into the main topic of the night. Just a short update there. Actually, quickly before I do that, Carnivalt.com are looking for micro influencers. If you have, 10,000 plus followers with good engagement rate, they want to send you $250 in their products. And if you get really good engagement on whatever content you put out there, there could be monetary compensation that goes with it. So if you got 10,000 plus people on any of your socials, send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com. Send the links to your socials. We will vet them and pass them on to the guys at Carnivalt. but pretty cool opportunity to get free carnival and maybe make a little bit of money on the side as well. So now I promise, now that that's done, we're going to dive into the main topic tonight. And that is this hidden, although not hidden, alliance between foreign state actors, state-sponsored terrorism, and Mexican cartels. So Don Mann served, he was a SEAL. He served in the Navy for 20 years. Then he was CIA for 23 years, served with Jeff. And we've mentioned on the podcast before that the CIA had intelligence back in the 90s that there were several hundred Hezbollah in America, and that there were a whole bunch more in Mexico working with the cartels, because when Hezbollah goes out of the Middle East, they're called Unit 910. It's not one unit. It's just a term for the whole world. Because I got a nasty gram from somebody, by the way, Khalid, Jeff knows about this, where somebody said, you guys are idiots, saying that there's one unit of Hezbollah and we need to worry about them. I was like, it's a name. It's the entire world except for the Middle East, right? So in the Middle East, they're funded by the IRGC. The rest of the world, they're primarily self-funded. So they joined at the hip with the cartels to make money from drugs, prostitution, child sex trafficking, all that sort of stuff. So we now have, these terrorists, radical Islamic jihadis that look like Mexicans. They speak with the same accent as Mexicans, and they're in deep into everything, including, training them how to make bombs. They make fentanyl in very rudimentary ways. It's not like when it's made in a lab, it's way more powerful, but it takes a fairly sophisticated setup to do that. But the rudimentary way they do it clearly is still more than enough to kill people. So basically, we're going to get into the relationship, especially IRGC and terrorist groups like Hezbollah, because they're not the only one. And they fund them extensively in the Middle East, by the way. Hezbollah doesn't have to worry about money in the Middle East. And Khalid will tell you that IRGC are the ones who run Iran, not the mullahs, not the, quote unquote government. And again, this is now escalated after all these years, and with 9/11 2.0 on the books, to way, way more than just narcotics. And Khalid posted something just before we went live that showed a bunch of cartel members all decked out in kit. They look just like one of our SWAT teams. Yep. And of course, we've seen all the videos of, terrorist central Afghanistan. These guys are all training out in the open. We left our training equipment there. We left the setups that we had for training. I mean, these are no longer, herders, for lack of a better term. These are professional, operators essentially. And, I'm going to turn it over to you first, Jeff, on this one to speak a little bit more about this unholy alliance that started over 30 years ago. You're on mute, Jeff.
You're on mute, Jeff. Jeff, you're on mute.
I was typing something. This has been going on for a long time. And earlier, initially, it was primarily about funding and about expediting the travel of people, basically smuggling money, drugs, and humans into the Western Hemisphere for their own purposes. It wasn't as much to target the United States, directly, as it was to support Hezbollah with manpower, money, and then with the drugs to make money off the drugs. Because Hezbollah is out of Lebanon. Lebanon was the base for export of Central Asian heroin into the West forever. Before 92, they really didn't have access to the Soviet Union because the Soviet Unions were pretty good about keeping them kind of tamped down. So they had to go south and then west. So now they're looking at it and going, well, if we can move drugs and people, why not drugs, people, arms, and everything else? So they're using the established smuggling routes to smuggle other stuff now too, and it's not good for us.
Jeff, did this start in Mexico? Because when I was researching for this episode,
kind of started Colombia.
Yep.
And it was again because of the cocaine trade, among other things. Colombia was essentially a failed state, a drug state, and they took advantage of that back in the 80s. Pablo Escobar and all that stuff.
That's interesting because I came across this white paper, The Nexus Between Transnational Organized Crime and Terrorism in Latin America, and I'll put a link to it in the chat here just in a second. But then I found a whole bunch of references to the tri-border area, which is Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay. And
it's cocaine producing area.
Yeah,
cocaine.
And the way it was phrased is this is like a historic hub for terrorists and cartels, convergence, all the stuff that we've been talking about. And then I also came across something, and I can't speak to the veracity of it, but perhaps one of you guys can. And I'll go to you on this, Clete, that the terror cells were the ones who actually established the routes for human smuggling, for child sex trafficking.
That's true.
I did not know that. Bring us up to speed on that. That's new news to me.
Well, look, you had the Hamas knowledge on building tunnels, and that was the biggest that was the biggest advantage that the terrorists gave to all of the drug smugglers and the cartels.
Okay.
Instead of taking a land route and going over a wall or going through the checkpost or crossing the desert, you could go underground. And they are big tunnels. They are not, small tunnels. They are big tunnels. You can load up a dolly and just push it through and just keep walking.
A lot of them have railroad tracks in it.
Yep. These are just amazing things that they built there. This all starts, I'll give you both sides. If you remember back in the old days, and Jeff can comment on this as well, when the IRA and all the young terror groups were starting to operate, they were in the Horn of Africa. Then from the Horn of Africa, they shifted and they went to Cocaine Central, because in the Horn of Africa they could train, but in Cocaine Central they could actually generate money while they trained. So they built networks there, and they started working with people. They started growing things. A lot of cartels took a lot of advice from these terror groups. They grew up. They moved to Mexico. They moved to Cuba. They moved to Venezuela, and they were starting to pump all kinds of drugs, because you had drugs coming from Afghanistan, you had drugs coming from the Middle East, you had drugs coming from Lebanon, all of it tied in with the cocaine. That all was being pushed into the U.S. through the smuggling channels they had. And then they said, wait a minute, what about people? We can kidnap someone in the U.S. and bring them into Mexico and then demand a huge bounty on them. So that was brought into the game. Then they started going, wait a minute, what about child sex trafficking? We have all these orphans in the Middle East. Why not put them in play as well? They have actually sold babies as well. I mean, you're looking for a child, they've sold you a child. This is your baby. You give it whatever name you want, and for the rest of its life, it's with you. So they have diversified in such a, again, I keep saying this, but I sound like a broken record when I say it. The terrorists have modified and matured in such a way that the playbook in the US has not monitored them. I mean, you're still looking at Al-Qaeda in the 1980s and 90s, and you're not looking at Islamic State and Al-Qaeda today. The level of lethality they have, the type of weapons they can use, the type of bomb making they can do, it's completely changed. And if you're still playing in the old, you're not gonna be ready for what's coming next.
That makes sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, and another reason they started down in South America was, you got to realize, back in the day, back in the 80s, early 90s, the Mexican cartels really weren't a thing. They had not organized. They were not that powerful. And their primary business was smuggling marijuana, which is a high volume, relatively low profit thing. It's bulk, not dollars. And so they went, because in South America, it was cocaine, and they smuggled primarily through the Caribbean and up into Florida. Well, when that got shut down, they said, well, let's just go through Mexico. And also back then, people don't realize that Mexico was controlled by one political party, the Revolutionary Party. And then when they started breaking up in PAN and all these others started going, there was no political unity in the country. If you could get, in the old days, if you got PRE on board, which we did, then you could, you were okay. They took care of things and they ran it on their end. But now you've got, this state is run by PAN, that state's run by PRE, this state is run by the socialists. And so it's really it's a mess now.
Yeah, but they're all on board. That's the sick part, is that they're all on board.
Now they're all just saying, well, if they're going to take money from the drug cartels, well, then so will I, and so will everybody else.
Jeff, did you know it was Hezbollah that came up with the swallowing of the balloons of cocaine?
It doesn't surprise me, but the issue with that, I don't know, the Mexicans didn't, and the Colombians, they didn't really need to. Although the Colombians did it as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Hezbollah, because that only works for a low volume, high dollar product.
Yep.
And that's going to be heroin or cocaine.
Yep.
Gotcha. So next one here, I'm going to come right back to you in just a second, Jeff, because this was much bigger than what I thought it was when I started looking into it. So hidden warfare, Iran's growing dependence on criminal networks. Since 2018, this article was written in 2024, by the way. Since 2018, Iran has intensified its use of criminal networks as proxies for executing attacks and operations abroad, particularly in Europe, targeting individuals and interests viewed as threats to the revolutionary regime. In the context of increasing confrontations with Israel, Tehran has expanded its targets from Iranian dissidents to Israeli and Jewish individuals, as well as journalists, LGBTQ plus activists, alphabet people, and other perceived adversaries. Iran's engagement with criminal gangs demonstrates a strategic pivot in its national security strategy, leveraging organized crime networks to pursue its geopolitical goals while avoiding direct conflict. The use of criminal organizations as state proxies can augment the operational capabilities of these groups, potentially fueling organized crime in Europe and ultimately facilitating discord in Western societies. I mean, I didn't know this had been going on for this long. It sounds very sophisticated.
We did it with the mafia in the 50s and 60s. It's basic subcontracting. Okay, I need to go into country A, and I don't have a presence in country A, or I don't have an established network. I hired the criminals. They know how to get around the authorities. They know how to operate without getting caught. They've got people in every little town. And what's the difference? Okay, you put a hit on somebody. If it's a businessman, a rival gang, or a political opponent of Iran, if I'm the shooter, do I care? No, I just, okay, who's paying me and how much? They're just subcontracting. It's actually pretty smart, and it's been going on forever.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff for sure. So that kind of sets the stage. So we move into the second segment now, funding, training, and weapons pipelines. So you've got all kinds of money laundering going on. You've got front companies. You've got black markets underway. You have arms moving around the world and arms components. How many times have we reported now that weapons, we left $7 billion in small weapons in Afghanistan, and somewhere around $1 billion worth now estimated has come back into America vis-a-vis terrorist groups and the cartels. It's where the man pads came from, where they were planning to try and shoot down Donald Trump's plane last year during the campaign, that our good friend Lieutenant Colonel Doc Pete Chambers broke the story on. So you've got small arms tactics that they're training them on. You've got explosives handling, meaning the terrorists are teaching the cartels all these things, how to do counter surveillance, drone adaptation. And then it's funny when I was looking up, and I'm looking at my bullets here, Jeff, with regards to proxies, contractors. It's too funny that you just said that. And other, I guess you could call like brokers, for lack of a better, term, but those brokers and contractors are used as proxies to essentially hide the original source being something like the IRGC. And these guys are deep into all kinds of things. It's banking, it's ownership of properties. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff. And we now have all these different jurisdictions involved. And in all these different jurisdictions, you have different layers of the terrorists and cartels, different layers of money laundering, different layers of crime happening. This is quite the hairball to try and figure out. And I'm curious, because follow the money and you get to the bottom. Describe the flow of money here, Khalid. Like, there's got to be billions of dollars involved.
Yeah, Iran moves roughly $4 billion a year through these networks, and they are bouncing it off of banks, at least 6 different banks, so that you lose the trace record. They wash it in every place it goes. Like, for example, I send you money, you pull it out of the bank, you run it through a cleaning system, put it back in, you send it to Jeff. Jeff pulls it out, he runs it through a cleaning system, pumps it out to somebody else, and it just runs through that way. They are using it right now, 12 different countries to run their money laundering through. They have accounts in the Cayman Islands. They have accounts in Europe. They have shell companies in Europe. They were using ships that were going from Europe and Morocco to Venezuela that were flagged with different countries, so it was never traced back to Iran. That's how they're moving weapons. That's how they're moving drugs. Once they got to Venezuela, from Venezuela they could get them to any country in the Western Hemisphere. It's really interesting how they've set this up, because when you do the study on the money side of this, it will blow your mind, because they have literally, it's almost like they sat down with accountants and mafia guys and said, all right, explain it to us. How do you clean your money? How do you move it from one place to another without getting caught? Because to run it through 12 banks, and it's always a different 12 banks. It's not always the same 12, so you can't trace it. So they go, like, they'll send it to Portugal. From Portugal, it'll go to Spain. From Spain, it'll go to France. From France, it'll go to Germany. From Germany, it'll go to Canada. From Canada, it'll go into the US. From the US, it'll go into a South American bank. And that's where they pull the money out from. And the next time they do it, it'll go through different banks in different countries. And it's just trying to track their funds it's a chore that you will not figure out. Sometimes they send crates of money because they're sending a ship anyway. They load up a crate with dollars and send it in the ship. It's completely untraceable then.
And sometimes it's not even money. You buy oil in Iran, and then they ship it to this, they ship it to an oil facility in some other country. And once it leaves the ship, you can't tell it's Iranian oil, but it's still oil. Oil is fungible, wherever, that's why the embargoes don't work that well, because oil is oil is oil. And so if you take your money, you buy a commodity, whether it's oil, whether it's wheat, it can be olives, it can be whatever.
Yep.
Then it's stuff. And then you go sell it on the market, and people who buy it don't care where it comes from. They just want flour, or they just want olive oil. And, the mafia has done this for years. They buy a legitimate business. They buy products and commodities through that business, and then they ship it to somebody who pays them money for it. And if they're investigated, the government goes, where did this money come from? Well, I sent him 5,000 liters of olive oil, and he sent me this much money. And they go, and they got the invoices and everything to prove it. And it's like, okay.
So that actually, I think that mostly answers my next question was, do we have sanctions on any of these countries, and are they not working? So I think you kind of just answered that question pretty well. So let me ask you this question, Jeff, while you're center stage. If there was one pipeline that you could, not gas pipeline, metaphorically speaking, if there was one pipeline that you could take out of the picture, which one would it be?
To stop this?
Well, to put the biggest dent in it.
Well, yeah. The thing is, you stop it, you stop your own your own business too. Yeah, you can take out the SWIFT system, but then you can't transfer any money either.
Fair enough.
Because international commerce depends on the ability to move money freely, effortlessly, and electronically.
Yep.
So Yeah, how they're taking advantage of our own system. I don't know that you really can. You've got to trace individual transactions, and you got to realize there's millions of these things going on every day. Maybe if you get an AI platform trained up on it and they can start looking for squirrely stuff.
Yep.
But otherwise, by the time humans do it, by the time you figure it out, it's too late. They've already got the money.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
That makes sense. So let's pivot into the third segment, which is Latin America on the whole. So it's funny you guys mentioned Venezuela. It's the first bullet that I have in my brief here, being a very permissive environment for Iranian aligned networks. They're joined at the hip essentially. And then that tri-border area that I described, you've got financing involved, you've got contraband involved, you've got all of these pathways that Khalid has described. There's tons of hard evidence on Hezbollah engaging in all this stuff. So whether it be drug trafficking, contraband, laundering schemes that you both have laid out, they've got their finger into all of this stuff. And then you've got this evolution of cartels, Mexican cartels, where they're becoming militarized, for lack of a better term. Now, some of the stuff I've seen is pretty hokey. There's one out there, CJNJ, and it starts out with like an MRAP, but it quickly goes to like F-250s outfitted with armor. And there's, when you watch that video, it's a pretty well-known one. Not one single Mexican cartel has the same gun as the next guy, cartel member. There's no uniformity in guns, calibers, or nothing, which is kind of like, rule number 101, right? Hence NATO 556, NATO 762 by 51, et cetera, et cetera. But they're definitely much more sophisticated than they were in the past. And they've been adopting, call it terror style tactics, because that's what they're being taught. It's part of the exchange that's happening, right? And Mexico is doing nothing about this, just like they did nothing when our country was invaded for 4 years during the Joe Biden installation. And I think we all are pretty clear that at the municipal level, through Mexico and Latin America, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of corrupt people that are in government positions. And we've all heard the stories of how local police and politicians are paid off. Shit, we've got it here in America, maybe just not quite on the same level. And at the end of the day, I don't know that we have the ability to affect much change in that. But Khalid, I want to come to you first. Which countries would you say are the most vulnerable to Hezbollah, IRGC, like terrorist guys basically taking over their stuff and running the show? And then which ones would be the weakest on the cartel side out of all of Latin America?
Well, if you start from the top of South America and go Paraguay, Colombia, Argentina, those are all easy to move, because the way they've always worked, because they've been there for so long, what they do is they find somebody they like, great charisma, people pleaser, and they start pumping money in, turning him into a politician. So when they get ready to put him up for an election, they fund the entire election. So they have literally raised their own politicians. So when they get into power, he might as well be a Hezbollah member that's in government, and he does everything that they need them to do.
Kind of like Big Pharma does here in America.
Kind of like Big Pharma does. Exactly. You find somebody, you like them, and you start educating them, you start getting them in community organizations, you start solving problems, because you have no limit on money. You can pay for hospital care, you can pay for rent, you can pay for food, no limit on, and you get a nice group of people together and you say, now you run for office. So they are able to control a lot of things. So when you start from there and move up, Cuba, Venezuela, I can't think of a country in Latin America that isn't vulnerable to this. When you get into Mexico, look, Latin America itself it's the most unstable region in all of the Western Hemisphere, because it gets pressure from the drug cartels in South America, and it gets pressure from the North because they want you to not do these things, but nobody will allow a stable government to play. But when you talk about what countries won't do it, I can't name one. because Brazil's been infiltrated, Argentina's been infiltrated, Paraguay's been infiltrated. I can't think of a country that hasn't been infiltrated, because the money is so big, Chris. It's not a few $1,000s here and there. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars they give people.
Well, Jeff, quickly though, before we change topics, Jeff, would El Salvador possibly be an exception to that rule? Because the new guy in El Salvador is really
well, as long as he lasts. Okay. We've had pro-U.S., pro-law and order presidents in Colombia.
Yep.
But what happens is, okay, they do their 2 terms and they're out, or more likely they're running for office and the cartels kill them.
Yep.
And you can be as pro-American, pro-law and order as you want to be, but if you're dead, it really doesn't matter a whole lot.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And they are not. That is a standard Colombian, technique. Is to, hey, this guy wants to combat the drug cartels. Let's just kill him. And it happened last year.
Yep.
Now, what happened to Venezuela? Venezuela used to be. It was a very wealthy country. It was pro-Western. It was well run. Had relatively low corruption by South American standards. But then they elected Hugo Chavez, who came in and destroyed. He killed the goose that laid the golden egg. He basically destroyed Pemex, their national oil company, which was, PDVSA or not Pemex is Mexico. I'm sorry, PDVSA, which was a very well run for a national oil company. It was very well run, and they put money into into maintenance and exploration things to maintain it. Well, he came in and said, okay, kid in a candy store, I'm going to raid the cash register, destroyed PDVSA, destroyed their oil industry. They went from producing like almost 4 million barrels a day to like 600,000. They went from being an exporter of gasoline to importing gasoline because they didn't maintain the refineries. They were buying oil from Houston. Gasoline from Houston, and then selling it for pennies. I had a friend who served down there, and he goes, when you filled up your gas, because the gas was so cheap, he says, I would just look at the change in my ashtray in my car because that would pay for the fill up. Wow. Because they basically gave it away to keep the people happy.
Sorry, gas.
Then, once the economy collapsed and they didn't have the money coming in, only then did you had Chavez and then later Maduro did it on steroids. They turned to drug smuggling because now they didn't have enough money to pay their loyal troops to keep them loyal. So in order to stay in power, they had to get involved in drug smuggling so they could have the money to pay off their people. They didn't give a shit about the average Joe. The citizenry was screwed. But they paid their bodyguards and the elite that kept them in power.
Yep. No, I appreciate the clarity there. And we're fixing to go into segment number 4. Just wanted to quickly mention a few things. Number 1, if you're looking for our videos, and we know there's some shenanigans going on CommieTube in particular, making it hard for people to find our stuff, just go to survivaldispatch.news. You can see here that whatever video is live shows up at the top of our Substack, survivaldispatch.news. It'll always be there. So if you get frustrated and you're hunting for it, go there. When we don't have a live broadcast happening, you can go to the first article, which spans the whole width, and that's the daily SITREP, the daily situation report. If you haven't seen one, this is what it looks like. This is the written piece that goes with every podcast that we do. And if you sign up as a paying member for $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year, you get 2 invitations on the Signal application, Signal Secure Messaging. So one of them is to the SDENS channel, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. So this is a read-only channel where we send emergency notifications. They also go to your email. They also go to our Substack. And if you have the POC-Link radios like this one here, these are $399 for 2 radios. They have been overwhelmed with sales. They're that popular. But these are an FRS radio and an LTE radio as well. And you can blast stuff out to an entire group. Think of the old Nextel radios, but global and a lot cheaper. So they're $399 right now. They're going to go to $1,140 for 2 of these before too long. And right now you get a SIM card that's good for the entire world, but that'll go away when the price goes up as well. There's going to be between $29 and $65 a year for whatever one you may sign up for. The second piece of the Signal invitation is you get an invite to our Guardians chat, which is absolutely insane. I cannot keep up with it. I work crazy long hours as it is, but the amount of intelligence that's shared in there from these guys, S2, Mike Sterling, and then we have some really enthusiastic members of the community that work their ass off, like Dale, Tim Smith, and there's more. The amount of information is just absolutely phenomenal. So that's what you get when you sign up. You've got the SDENS notifications, you've got the Signal chat. There's other stuff, but those are the big things that people really concentrate on. So with that being said, moving into segment 4, which is focused on our response, the U.S. response, and gaps overall. So whether it be gaps in communication between local law enforcement, county, state, and feds, there's not great communication. You guys have heard Keith Graves speak to that at length on SDN. We have some tools at our disposal, like sanctions, which you just heard from both Khalid and Jeff, really don't appear to have worked very well. You've got the FTO designations, so foreign terrorist organization designations. That's a pretty big deal, and that gives us much greater latitude to deal with these guys. We've got export controls, we've got anti-money laundering rules, but again, some of these things aren't effective. Some of them have lots of gaps in them, and so that means that we have to integrate all of our intelligence. So the whole idea was to pull, all of the intel agencies under one, and now you got, Tulsi Gabbard overseeing all of the intelligence stuff. We still hear from these guys on a regular basis. We have guys who are, recently retired or still active, DHS, FBI, Department of War. Their coordination sucks, especially like we started out with the FBI countering, the NCTC and saying, oh no, there's no 9/11 2.0 threat. Meanwhile, the NCTC is putting out notifications saying, pay attention, this is coming. I mean, why doesn't it surprise me that our government is doing this? It's so freaking dysfunctional at times. At times, I should say. You also have things like the complexity, like Khalid described, in the money. If you follow the money, you'll figure something out. But if it's that complex and difficult, we don't necessarily have the manpower to do all of this stuff. We've got, various diplomatic costs that we can throw in. But here's the problem with diplomacy. If you have good diplomatic relations with a country and they've got stuff going on like Venezuela and the drugs compared to, say, Mexico and the drugs, can you imagine the shit that would hit the fan if we started attacking vessels in Mexico instead of Venezuela? I mean, we've got enough grief as it is from the bleeding heart liberals over blowing up drug runners from Venezuela. They would absolutely lose their shit if it was Mexico. And I'm sure all the Mexican, theatrical politicians, just like our politicians, would have lots to say on that. But this is a pretty complex problem, and the cartels being joined at the hip with the terrorist organizations make it even more, complex overall. So, Khalid, I'm coming to you first on this. What tools that are on the books? Like, I'm not talking, we need to go past these new laws or rules so that we can have an effect. What laws are on the books? What regulations are on the books that can impact this, that we're not using or we're underusing, that we're just not leveraging to get this shit under control?
Well, look, on the finances side, you have a lot of regulations that you can use from the banks. Track and trace on financial transactions is very easy. The one thing I like about the CIA is they've got a terror financing division for terror financing. And their job is specifically to find big transactions, big money movement.
Are we underutilizing this though, or like we not focusing on?
Completely.
That's where I wanted to go. Okay, thank you.
Because look, when you talk about the FBI can watch every financial transaction in the U.S. through the the economic department, through the Department of Justice, they can say, okay, we want to track this account.
Okay.
Why is this much money coming in this account? The guy lives in a house this big. He's got a car like this, but he's getting so much money passed to him, right? When you look at the CIA works international. They are able to tag any account anywhere in the world. They're also able to pick up new types of transactions. Like a lot of us, like Command 11, for example, we take a lot of payments from clients that are abroad via crypto. That way it doesn't go through a bank. Because I know the bank's policy in Pakistan, if we're transferring $10,000, $15,000 into our account, the amount of questions I'm going to be asked is just unbelievable. So I tell clients, okay, here's our crypto account, transfer the money this way. Again, I go back to that phrase that you need to mature with who your enemy is. And they're maturing. They have found ways to transfer money via crypto, via Payoneer, I mean, they're using everything. It's like Jeff was saying, they even send you product. So how are you going to track where this money is going unless you know who you're looking at? And Iran has worked out a really interesting system. Instead of it being an IRGC member, they get a businessman who's loyal to the IRGC, and they run the money through him.
No, I appreciate that. So, Jeff, I want to pull up an article before I come to you, which is a good one here. DEA and European authorities uncover massive Hezbollah drug and money laundering scheme. I know I've asked this before, Clede, but why sometimes is it spelled H-I-Z versus H-E-Z?
It's like the Gaddafi question. Sometimes it's K-H, sometimes it's Q. It's just how people spell it at times.
Well, we used the same thing about Mohammed. There's like 50 different ways to spell a word that has like 8 letters.
Okay.
How that mathematically works out, I don't know, but it seems to be true.
That's funny. So this was February 1st, 2016. So we're going back 9 years here. But the United States Drug Enforcement Agency today announced significant enforcement activity, including arrests targeting Lebanese Hezbollah external security organization Business Affairs, which is involved in international criminal activities such as drug trafficking and drug proceed money laundering. These proceeds are used to purchase weapons for Hezbollah for its activities in Syria. This ongoing investigation spans the globe and involves numerous international law enforcement agencies in 7 countries, and once again highlights the dangerous global nexus between drug trafficking and terrorism. So, I mean, this stuff has been going on for forever and a day, and there's tons of stuff out there if you want to go search on it. But my question for you would be, is there a way that we can maybe refocus our intelligence and law enforcement agencies to make them more efficient, to do a better job? Because it seems like a lot of stuff is falling through gaps.
Well, you just got to prioritize it. And, before 9/11, especially in the FBI, the Joint Terrorism Task Force is where careers went to die.
Yep.
Because it was not career enhancing. And for the most part,
why was it? Why was that? I didn't know that. Explain what the JTTF is first for our audience who don't know.
Well, it's the Joint Terrorism Task Force. It is a multi-agency task force headed up by the FBI and in FBI offices. And they worked with local police and state police and other, there were literally everybody was involved who was law enforcement. I worked with them a lot, but I wasn't part of it because CIA has no law enforcement ability in the United States. So these were all people who could make an arrest. There were air marshals. There were, Navy intel or Navy criminal investigative service guys. There was everybody. Anybody who had a badge and a gun was on the JTTF, and a lot of it was local. But there wasn't a lot going on. So you would go there and you would do your 2 or 3 years, but you didn't break a case because there wasn't a whole lot of cases to break. And it's like, if you're a cop, whether you're FBI or a local cop, you get promoted on making cases.
Yep.
And that was my argument I always had with the Bureau. And I said, you guys look at it as there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a crime, you investigate, you arrest and convict. This is intel work. There's never an end. I said, I recruit, develop. I spot, assess, recruit, develop, develop and recruit, and then run somebody. And when that guy loses access, it's not over. I have to find somebody else who has the new access. That guy retires, great, send him on his way. I'll find somebody else. So it continuously goes. But in the Bureau, if you're not making cases, you're not getting promoted. And the other one is foreign counterintelligence. And the one you chase spies. If you're on the FCI squad and you're in, you're in, backwater Texas somewhere, you're not getting promoted because there's no FCI cases to make. There's no KGB running around in, in Midland, Texas.
Right.
So the guys on the FCI squad, the token guy, you tend to put the guy, he's either going to retire soon or he's your problem child, and you can put him somewhere where he does the least amount of damage. All the FCI work was New York, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco, because that's where the Russians had a consulate. And that's just the facts. So you have to prioritize this stuff, promote the people going after it, and encourage them to do more. Now, there was something, Khalid was also talking about with the financial crime stuff. The advantage the CIA had when they were tracking terrorist money flows, we were like, outside the United States, it's like, warrant? What warrant? I don't need no stinking warrant. We could do whatever the hell we wanted as long as nobody caught us. And I always told people our job was to break the laws of every country on the planet except our own.
Yep. Yeah. So just good question here. New to the channel, why some of the comments not make sense. We're broadcasted in 9 different platforms. They are all aggregated in our admin interface. You can respond to individual platforms and destinations, but the default behavior is if one of us puts something into the live chat, it goes out to all of the platforms with the exception of Rumble. Rumble doesn't play nicely. It doesn't go back and forth. So we have to run Rumble separately, but that probably explains that for you. Jeff, before I take you off center stage, is there any credibility to the argument that, and I've heard this made on behalf of different agencies, well, we just can't do that because it would be a violation of civil liberties. And to me, that sounds like bullshit because they violate civil liberties all the time. But
there's ways to do it. It's, like FISA courts, you got to go through the paperwork. You got to get a warrant to, get a phone on some American citizen who you suspect is an Al-Qaeda guy. All right. There are ways you can do it, but you got to follow the rules. And people get frustrated with that. Overseas, we had no rules. We could do whatever the hell we wanted for the most part. We didn't have rules. We had policies, and policies are way flexible. And our standard operating thing, at least mine, was better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Right.
Because if you're right, you're right, you do it anyway, and it proves you're right, they'll get over the fact you didn't ask permission up front.
Yep.
And so, well, okay, yeah, you were right, and you got the bad guy. Okay, fair enough.
All right. I appreciate that, Jeff. So we're moving into the 5th and final segment, which is a forecast of sorts. So again, we are, Khalid, what are we on? Episode number 40, 39, 40?
39, 40, yeah. I think last night was 38.
So Khalid and I put together, call it 12 seasons, TV seasons, for lack of a better term. And then each season has 12 episodes. So 144 total episodes in this long war series that we're doing. We specifically designed them so that each episode stands on its own. You don't have to watch all of them. You don't have to watch them in order. You can watch each individual one, and you only have to listen to a little bit of repetitive stuff so it makes sense for everybody out there. So the Long War series is predicated on 9/11 2.0. There's a ton of intelligence. Khalid is a major source of this intelligence. He's Sarah Adams' friend and provides intelligence for her, just so you know the level that he's at. And essentially what it lays out is Mumbai 2008, Paris 2015 as the blueprints for simultaneous, complex, coordinated terrorist attacks in 10 to 15 tier 2 American cities simultaneously. So 100,000 to 500,000 population, especially the ones that have one level 1 trauma center. And the Cliff Notes version is that you have these small ISIS cells, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys, and you have 10 of them for each of the cities. They start attacking soft targets like schools, and then they stop and they wait for the cops to show up. And they've been doing all these probing attacks. If you've noticed all of these, fake active shooter or fake bomb threats that have been going on a regular basis, that's the final stage for the terrorists as far as testing and determining what the SOPs are, the response times are for first responders, which direction they come from, which direction they tell people to exfil or to leave. But just like Mumbai and Paris, the first attack's bad. Like the first attack in Mumbai, 2 guys inside of 2 minutes killed 50 people with AK-47s. So they do these attacks, they stop, they wait, the first responders show up, they let off a VBID, a vehicle-borne IED, and kill a whole bunch of cops. And this goes on through the course of the day, but they all converge back at the hospital at the end of the day. They siege it, they take control of it, use it as home base to blast out all kinds of horrific videos, torturing Americans, beheading Americans. And while all of that's going on, Al-Qaeda goes to the airport and hijacks 2 or 3 planes on the ground, because it's hard to hijack planes in the air these days, but on the ground, not so much. But after everybody's got on the plane, they hijack it, they take off, they fly at low altitude over the city, they blow the plane up, and you have body parts, plane parts, all luggage, everything strewn all over, these urban centers, causing tremendous psychological damage. You have to add into this that the FBI has 4 HRT teams for the entire country, hostage rescue teams. They are not trained for this level of calamity. You can't do this with anything other than Delta team going in to kill and Rangers outside to manage everything that's going on the periphery. So what we're talking about tonight is all of this stuff has historically been going on between the terrorists and the cartels. It will only escalate post 9/11 2.0 because law enforcement will be gutted. Heck, 2020, we did a spreadsheet. Khalid and I did a spreadsheet on this, and we looked at a bunch of cities, what their head count was before defund the police in 2020, what their head count is now, what the reduction in budget was, but also there's an intangible that's hard to capture. They all had to lower their standards, and because there weren't enough people showing up. So nationally, we're running somewhere around 40% short on what we need for law enforcement officers, And when you take into account that they have this, post 2020 cops that came in under easier criteria, if the number says, okay, well, they have 60% of the head count that they had before defund the police in 2020, how much of that 60% legitimately aren't high caliber officers? Think Acorn Cop, like we had here in Florida, where it's the best example I can think of. I know it's funny, not funny, but either way. So now we find ourselves kind of looking at the forecast, like what's coming, down the pipe as the country is, balkanized. We've got massive, psychological damage to the American psyche, for lack of a better term. So now you end up with people fighting over the tatters that are left behind. And a big part of that, of course, is the terrorists in conjunction with the cartels, who they both have tremendous numbers of boots on the ground. When Mayorkas's DHS said they released 200,000 SIAs into the country over 4 years, special interest aliens, the number's probably at least twice that. An SIA is a known terrorist or a known terrorist associate. So anybody who thinks that you can leave the front door open for 4 years, let hundreds of thousands of terrorists into the country, and they aren't going to attack us, man, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you, and so does Jeff, because that's where he's at. So with all of that being said, you've got technology playing a big role in this. So they're using cheap drones. As Khalid mentioned earlier, the cartels are already using these drones to bomb rival cartels. They've gotten into encrypted communications now. They're even using AI-powered stuff. They're trading in crypto, as he mentioned as well. So they're quite sophisticated. And at the end of the day, our resilience has not improved. Our resilience in cities, counties, states across the nation has not improved. I would argue it's probably gone down, especially when you have federal law enforcement telling state and county law enforcement, no, don't worry about Al Qaeda. That's just BS. That's not going to happen when there's mountains of evidence to the contrary. I thought this was going to change under Kash Patel, but apparently that was pie in the sky thinking. Then the next thing that we contend with now and even moving forward will be public awareness. The general public doesn't have any awareness on this because the legacy media doesn't cover it. And the reason the legacy media doesn't cover it is because big pharma accounts for 75% of the ad revenue for all of the legacy media organizations now, and they dictate what the narrative is, and they want people to just take more SSRIs, more drugs, make more money, and just get fat and happy and don't worry about all these other things that are, fixing to happen to us. It's essentially, we have a drug crisis between the cartels and big pharma, and I would argue that big pharma is probably worse than the cartels are. So with all of that being said, Khalid, I'm coming to you first on this one. What does the country look like in 3 to 5 years specific to this unholy alliance between terrorist organizations, terrorist funding from state actors like IRGC, and cartels and gangs like TDA?
Well, I would really hope it doesn't take 3 to 5 years to end this thing. But if it does take that long, I mean, you're within a month and a half, they will have divided the country amongst themselves. The cartels will have control over certain areas. The non-state actors will have control over certain areas. You'll have nation states like China, Russia, that have control over certain supply lines. So maybe your food is all pumped through on a Chinese system. So they're making all the money that comes back. What ends up happening is that America is no longer America. And I see a lot of people saying in the chat that, even if law enforcement's gone, we've got weapons and we'll defend it. You're not trained to fight these people. We've been doing this for 15 years now against the terrorists. We watched them grow up from what they were 15 years ago to what they are now. And we don't stop training. I mean, literally, I literally have a team in the shoot house right now that is running on new tactics that we saw in the video, that they're doing this and they're running on those tactics. You are not ready for what's coming because these guys are not trained by here and there. Their base training is U.S. Special Forces because let me stop for a second. They were trained initially Afghan Army. That was all trained by the U.S. military. Okay. When the U.S. pulled out, those guys turned over to the Taliban because the government of Afghanistan was paying $2 a day. The Taliban was paying $20 a day. Who are you going to work for?
Right.
So when they shifted over, you had all of those people come and start training the Taliban. Then on top of that, India kicked in and said, all of your army people, the Taliban army, send to our military schools in India and we'll train them. So they got additional training there and they came back to Afghanistan. Then Russia came in and trained them more. Then China came in and trained them on top of that. You've had 5 agencies train you. You know tactics that, people have not seen yet. And when you talk about their movement inside the U.S., they will have complete control. Complete control. Your banks will be under their control. Your communication will be under their control. Your food supply will be under their control. They may end up setting up their own police agencies in different neighborhoods. The reason we've over and over said set up your own mutual assistance groups is so you can protect your neighborhood. You're not worried about the rest of the city. You're worried about where you live and your family. So if you've got people that you have trained up and understand, yeah, okay. Just a simple comment. You invaded Afghanistan in 2001. You pulled out in 2021. Who took power after you left?
Well, I mean, this point here, Lyle, the vast majority of Americans have had no stress inoculation. They go to the range. All that's good for sighting in optics. Have you shot guns under stress inoculation conditions? Heart rate 140, 150 beats per minute. loss of fine motor control. Because I have a video. Let's play it right now, actually. This is what happens to people who have the balls bigger than the brain syndrome, like that gentleman, who think that you're just going to engage and do battle with these guys who are trained at a spec ops level, when in reality, 17% of shots taken by law enforcement officers last year hit their target. 31% of SWAT team shots taken last year hit their target. Less than 10% of shots taken by our military connect with a target. So if you have never shot a gun with a heart rate of 140 plus beats per minute while you're moving, while you're running, I would encourage you to try that. I do that 5 days a week in high intensity training. And let me tell you something, it takes a long time to get proficient when you're stressed out, physically stressed out. You've lost your fine motor control. Here's one for you. If you're too lazy to do physical activity, take your hands, stick them in a bucket of ice for 60 seconds, and then run the Mozambique drill or other drills. Let's see how well you do, because that mimics the loss of fine motor control when you're in a high stress situation. So check this out. Lumberton, North Carolina. This is a great example. It's not that long ago. It's a 53-second video. So I'm going to be pausing this as we go through it. Okay. This guy here who's fixing to get in the driver's seat is a carjacker. This guy in the safety vest is a good Samaritan. And you'll see what happens next. He has now pulled his pistol. The good Samaritan has pulled his pistol. The carjacker is in the driver's seat. This guy here in the safety vest took 5 shots. He's at point blank range, 5 shots, 0 connected with the car driver. And this is typical. If you want another number to chew on before I play this again, 70% of Floridians who were killed by gunshot wound last year that did not commit suicide were shot with their own gun. They got into a confrontation, they pulled their gun, they went into condition black, the bad guy took the gun away from them and shot them. I hate to sound like an asshole here, but you are not prepared. You are not prepared to get in a shootout and think that you're going to sling lead and everything's going to be fine. It's not. So check this out. This guy ends up, there he goes again. Look, he's shooting from what? Several feet away. Watch what happens to this good Samaritan. This video, I have to play this video because if we play the whole video on CommieTube, they'll give us a strike, potentially, nuke our channel. So here he is. Here's the good Samaritan. The guy who carjacked the truck backed up about 50 yards, put his toe into it. And at that point, this guy bounces off the front of the truck and loses his life because from 5 feet away, he was unable to connect. So the concept of stress inoculation cannot be stated enough. And this hubris that people think, oh, I go to the range. Well, number one, you go to the range, you drop your EDC ammo, you shoot ball ammo, then you put your EDC ammo back in that doesn't even behave the same, period. Number one. Number two, you're just out having some fun shooting. You're not running, you're not gunning, your heart rate's not elevated, you haven't lost fine motor control. So
there's no ducking cover.
It's hubris. Yeah. So pick it up from there and run with it. Sorry to interrupt, Khalid, but that one.
That's all right. That comment was
sense of overconfidence.
We get one every episode that says, well, we've got this and we'll do that. And I always go, 15 years I've been in the field. And we have seen these guys grow up. They are not the kind of guys that we saw back in 2001. Those were guys that could not hit the broadside of a barn from 5 feet away. Now they are deadly accurate. They measure their shot. They are deadly accurate now. When you talk about what's going to happen in the U.S., the fear I've got is that the complacency. Look, NCTC put out 2 alerts. The first alert they put out was people impersonating law enforcement. There is an alert that NCTC put out that people are going to impersonate law enforcement. 6-page alert that came out. The second alert they put out was Al-Qaeda. FBI is turning around and saying, "Oh, it's not going to happen." All right, it's not going to happen. Let's talk about all the uniforms that have been stolen. Let's talk about all the vehicles that have been bought at auction. All the vehicles, all the stickers that have been printed and put on regular vehicles. Let's talk about all the radio systems that have been bought. Are you tracking all this information? Because to say something is not credible, you better have something to back it up. Because when this hits, and People turn around and go, well, the FBI said this wasn't credible. The shit comes on you. And this 144 episodes we're doing is literally for the people, because we know law enforcement is not going to protect you. So we want you to understand what you need to do to stock up, make sure you're protected, have food that will last you for 45 days, because it'll take at least 45 days before a supply chain starts running again.
Well, time out, Clede. So are you saying that the chief of police in Canada a couple months ago told people, do not engage somebody who broke into your home? Just call us. We'll be there to save you in 10 to 15 minutes. You're saying
didn't he also,
is that
didn't he also say, didn't he also say put the keys to your car by the door, so that if the guy's coming to steal your car, he just opens the door, grabs the keys, and walks away?
Well, I mean, it must be true. I mean, the chief of police said it.
I mean, just the sheer and we have looked at Canada. I mean, we haven't talked about Canada in our episodes, but we have looked at Canada. Canadian armed forces has been infiltrated by ISIS. There are recruiting cells inside of the Canadian military. We have identified 5 so far, and they are not little. Toronto, there is a cell of 35 that grows every week. In Montreal, there's a cell of 25. In Winnipeg, there's a cell of 45. And as you look at it, you just start going, oh my God, what is going on? They have made training videos of the Canadian armed forces on the shooting range and put jihadi music on top of it and released it.
Unreal.
You don't know the enemy you're dealing with. And when we talk about it, it's a shock to us that the U.S. is not even taking it seriously.
And that Stuart just said it perfectly. We say it all the time. No one is coming to save you. You are your own first responder. And I'm just going to quickly add this. If you take nothing away from this 144 episode series we're doing, other than one thing, if you find yourself on the X when a terrorist attack happens, run away as fast as you possibly can. Do not hang out and wait for law enforcement to show up. As Clede said, there will be impersonators. They've stolen uniforms from National Guard armories. They've stolen police uniforms. They've stolen paramedic uniforms. This is not a new thing. They've been doing this forever and a day. It happened on 10/7 in Israel. The people who were paying attention got to their cars, tried to exfil. 2 Hamas guys dressed up as Israeli police said, stop, it's not safe to go past here. And they killed them all while they sat in their cars. Safety, distance equals safety. Just get as far away as you possibly can. So, Jeff, this is the end of the final segment, and I've got a couple questions for you. The first one is, what technology or technology trends do you think are empowering these cartels and terrorist groups the most?
You're on mute, Jeff.
I'm always on mute. That way you guys don't hear me like making gross noises.
His wife has him trained well.
That's true. There's a lot. There's encrypted communications, so they can talk to each other and not worry about people listening in on them. There's drone technology, so they can basically have eyes in the sky where they normally would not have that sort of thing. And then there's the training that they're engaging in, which, as Cully pointed out, they really didn't do a lot of that before. And as far as, the whole stress inoculation thing, they're training with stress inoculation. Yeah. But for people who think, oh, I can handle this, okay, go to the range and shoot, and then go through a shoot house and shoot. Guarantee you may hit 9 out of 10 on the range. You'll be lucky to get 1 out of 10 in a shoot house, especially if someone's shooting back at you with sim rounds or something. Having been shot with a sim round under those circumstances, that shit hurts, man. I mean, I had a big ass welt, and it changes your attitude. And I'll tell you what. You tend to be a lot quicker on the trigger, and you don't expose yourself a lot, which means you probably don't get a good sight picture, and you're not in it when you're shooting at. So it's a totally different critter. It's sort of like doing math at home for homework and then having to do it on a test where your whole future depends on it. There's a little bit more stress there.
Cindy double tapped me with the Byrna rifle.
It's because you pissed her off.
Well, I mean, I can't really argue that, but she shot me from point blank range in the back with the Byrna rifle with the 1/2-inch kinetic rounds, not the ones that have CS in them. And I told her ahead of time, I said, double tap it so I get the full effect of how bad it was. And then we were going to do it at a further distance. I did the first one point blank. I had 2 welts this big on my back where she hit me, and she was getting ready to hit me again. And I was like, stop, we're calling off this drill. Anymore, but
and then she had loaded 5 more. No,
I'm the crash test dummy at Survival Dispatch.
Well, I got it when I was doing car ambush training before I went to Afghanistan back in 2002. And I was trying to make myself as small as possible, get behind the engine, and I had 1 foot out, and man, they nailed it. And I got shot in the ankle, and I had a welt yay big and bright red. And that was just training rounds.
Yep.
Shit hurts, man.
Good times. I've got the final question is for both of you. So I'm going to pull you up right after Jeff here, Clede. What concrete actions should our communities take right now? So take the law enforcement out of the picture, because they're not coming to rescue you. They're going to go rescue their own families if their heads are screwed on, right?
Yep.
So what can communities do now to try and be a little bit proactive?
I think in your neighborhood, if you can establish a mutual assistance group and find somebody with combat experience, somebody who went through GWAT, someone who has been shot at and has shot people, to be in it. And if he's not a total moron, put him in frickin' charge of it.
Yep.
Good advice.
Don't take the guy, I'm a really good organizer. Well, that doesn't mean jack shit when bullets are flying.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Great advice, Jeff. Khalid, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. I mean, the more GWAT people you can get in touch with, even if you have a GWAT guy just train you on a weapon and train you on how to move, it will change the way you shoot. Because shooting at a target is one thing. Shooting and moving is different. Shooting and covering yourself is much different. And each of the stages makes you have to be more aware. We have said over and over, situational awareness, situational awareness. People still have not figured out what we mean by situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You have got to have your head up and on a swivel at all times. You look down that mobile. I mean, when I'm in the market, I don't even pull my phone out of my pocket. It is on silent in my pocket. I don't even touch it. I'm looking around because you don't know where a threat's going to come from. The advantage we have is that we have seen what terrorists look like, so we know what we're looking for. You've never seen one. You don't know what the bulky clothing. The guy could be fat, or he could have a suicide vest on. You don't know what to look for. You don't know what to look for in the eyes. This is why we're so surprised that the FBI is saying, well, it's not real. You are putting American lives at risk just because of your own, and I hate to say it, your own dick measuring contest.
Mm-hmm. Khalid, can you answer this for the viewer? As the time frame
is still the same. All right, now look, there's a problem here. There's a lot of people that have taken my intelligence and Sarah's intelligence and crafted their own time frame. That this is going to happen in October. This is going to happen in November. One of my Telegram groups, I literally saw it in there and I commented. I said, dude, we're the source intelligence. It's not November. Stop telling people it's November. This is end of November to end of February 2026. And we are picking prime time, middle of December, because that's when there's the most traffic out. That is the time when the shopping malls are full. That is the time when restaurants are full. That is the time when people will be paying less attention to people around them and be paying more attention to stuff in front of them. So you get that distraction benefit. You get the advantage of being huge amount of people out shopping. You take control of one shopping center, that's thousands of people.
Yeah. Appreciate that. I think this is a good time to revisit Colonel Jeff Cooper's combat mindset. And he didn't come up with the condition black. It was tacked on after the fact, but let's just go through this quickly for people so you understand. So condition white means, you're unaware of your surroundings. You're completely tuned out. So that's sitting at home, chilling out. Condition white is okay. However, due to these weapons of mass distraction, when you see people in public with their face buried in these things, they're in condition white. And that's just NFG, no matter how you cut it. So when you walk out the front door and you go to cross the road, you look both ways and then you cross the street, because we were taught that as children. That's condition yellow. So as you can see, you're relaxed, prepare, but you're aware and you have some situational awareness. Now, let's say you're sitting in a restaurant, wherever, and there's a confrontation breaks out between other people, or there's somebody comes in the Florida 100-degree weather with a trench coat on. That looks pretty dang suspicious. Now you're in code level orange, which, you know, you've identified a potential threat. You're ready to act. You're thinking it through in your head, right? So we go to a restaurant. I sit with my back against the wall. I have a purview of all of the main entrances and exits. And if it's a restaurant and we have to exfil, we're going through the kitchen, because those main exits, and terrorists are notorious for hanging outside the exits. And as people exfil, the second group of terrorists that's outside ends up mowing people down. So condition red, it's happened. Shit's going down at that point. And so you have to take action at that particular time. You have to be actively engaged with whoever the bad guy is. And condition black is when you're frozen, you're panicked, you're in shock, caught completely off guard. The vast majority of people, when confronted with sudden violence, go straight to condition black. And unless you have some element of stress inoculation, that's where you'll be. And that's here's a saying, a Sun Tzu saying, it's a paraphrase of what Sun Tzu said, but human beings do not rise to the occasion. They fall to their level of training. So if you have no training, condition black is waiting for you. And condition black means DRT. So basically nothing good comes out of that. But with that being said, that wraps up the main topic. We've got some cool stuff here to deal with. This is one of my favorite parts of the entire show. Here we go. The Carnival Hero of the Day. I'm telling you, I feel like John Madden Monday Night Football, taking me back to high school in 1985 sort of thing. Anyway, this is a pretty cool one that was actually sent to us by one of our viewers. This is insane. A trained military canine performing real chest compressions and mouth to mouth to save a life. I've seen smart dogs, but this is next level hero stuff. 19 seconds. There's no audio, by the way. This is not AI. I dropped this on AI or not just to see what it said. This is legit. This is 100%. It's the first I've ever seen of it. If anybody out there in the audience has seen something like that before, do me a favor and drop a 1 in the live chat, whatever platform you're on. If you've ever seen what we just watched here, it doesn't have to be that particular video. I just mean in general. I've never seen a dog that was trained to give CPR. If you've never seen anything like that before, put a 0 in the live chat, because I'm telling you, until this was sent to me, I'd never seen it. So I don't know if it's common knowledge and I just missed it, but very interesting stuff either way. All right. So the next one up here is the reader submitted story of the day, and special thanks go out to J Dub for submitting this one. So we broke the streak for Dale. We have this prolific poster, Dale and Tim Smith, in our private Signal chat. These guys are machines. They work around the clock collecting news items and whatnot. But J Dub has broken Dale's streak. Dale, are you going to take this? Are you going to stand up and reclaim your crown? I guess we'll find out by Monday, right? So the owner of Telegram, Pavel Durov, somebody wrote Patel. It's not Patel. It's Pavel Durov, just posted a very concerning message about free speech. So he should have probably put quotations on this, but it starts here. But this is bad stuff. I'm turning 41, but I don't feel like celebrating. Our generation is running out of time to save the free internet built for us by our fathers. What was once the promise of the free exchange of information is being turned into the ultimate tool of control. Once free countries are introducing dystopian measures such as digital IDs, online age checks, and mass scanning of private messages, Germany is persecuting anyone who dares to criticize officials over the internet. The UK is imprisoning thousands for their tweets. France is criminally investigating tech leaders who defend freedom and privacy. A dark dystopian world is approaching fast while we're asleep. Our generation risks going down in history as the last one that had freedoms and allowed them to be taken away. We have been fed a lie. We've been made to believe that the greatest fight of our generation is to destroy everything our forefathers left us: tradition, privacy, sovereignty, the free market, and free speech. By betraying the legacy of our ancestors, we've set ourselves on a path towards self-destruction, moral, intellectual, economic, and ultimately biological. So no, I'm not going to celebrate today. I'm running out of time. We are running out of time. And these are the screenshots here of the post that Pavel Durov made. And this is the guy who invented Telegram and still runs it to this day. So J-Dub, appreciate you sending it in. I can't believe somebody broke Dale's streak, but boy, howdy, you got a challenger now to look out for, Dale. All right, so conflicted question of the night. Your bug out location is far off the beaten path, but you feel you need to put something as a barrier to discourage people from heading down your way. There aren't enough materials to build a physical barrier. It has to be a psychological one that would cause people to turn away just from seeing it. What kind of psychological barrier would you build, and how would it be effective? So for those of you who missed this at the beginning of our broadcast, this isn't a post-apocalyptic dystopian scenario. And usually there's an element of morality. I don't see a whole lot of morality in this, but maybe you could pull some in. Jeff, what are you doing to freak people out not to come down your path?
Well, I'm going to put up signs that say danger, keep out, unexploded ordnance. And then I'm going to make a few dummy craters and maybe half of a deer carcass, so it looks like a deer hit a landmine and blew itself up. And if I really got the utility and I can figure a way to pull it off, I'll get like part of a human leg and, lay it out there as well.
Kudos. Good job.
Good job, Jeff. That was a good one. That was a good one. I would build a couple fake sniper nests, put pipe in it so it looked like there's a sniper sitting there. I would set up a couple mounds of dirt so it looks, well, not mounds, but a little bump so it looks like there's something there that if you walk over it or walk close to it, it'll detonate. Get a couple lasers, set those up in different places so it looks like there's some kind of a trigger system. I like the dead body thing. Jeff's really got that. That's a good one. I would never have thought of that one.
Well, he actually stole part of my answer, because my answer was going to be, if it's a post-apocalyptic dystopian place, there's got to be, dead bodies that are nothing's left but their bones bleached by the sun. I would go collect a whole bunch of bones and put them at the end of the thing, basically make it look like a graveyard of sorts. But I didn't have any. I didn't have any, really sophisticated, smart stuff like Jeff does there. So, kudos for coming up with that. Yeah.
Jeff, see, they play these games with people.
100%.
Paid to do, come on.
I like it. So if y'all could head on over to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for a free account. Again, when we're live, 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, you'll see the video up here. When we're not live, the SITREP for the day, the situation report for the day, is inside. You get it for free. You get our weekly watch guide for free. You get early access to instructional videos from JJ Morris. And if you sign up as a paying member for $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year, which gets you 2.5 free months, you get 2 invites on Signal. So you get 1 invite to the SDENS channel, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. And if shit's going down, notifications will be sent to the SDENS group. It's read only, so there's no noise. You can quickly see what's going on. It goes to your email. It goes to the website, the Substack website. And if you have the POC-Link radios, which you can get for $399 for a pair right now, links down below in the description. These are going up to $1,140 for 2 radios imminently. Right now, you can get 2 for $399. I will send you a QR code where you can join our Guardians group on here. So SDEN's notifications go to the SDEN's channel on Signal. They go to the POC-Link radios. They go to your email. They go to our Substack. No, they do not get texted to you for a very specific reason. I get asked that a lot. Which one manages communications? FCC. The FCC will fine you $500 for every person that you send text messages to, and every message you send, if they have not agreed to very specific verbiage. I know a couple of people got hammered on it, and we have a huge number of people on our list, and it's too much of a risk for us to send those, but they're getting everywhere else. A text message to Signal, same thing, but it's encrypted. Want to say we appreciate all y'all who chip in. We have some pretty hefty expenses here, and it helps us defer. It allows us to work long hours to bring you the truth. Our premier sponsor, Carnivalt. This stuff's incredible. 100% American ranchers, steak, beef, and chicken. No mRNA, no antibiotics, no histamines. The bags are made in America. The O2 absorbers are made in America. They now have single servings, by the way. I was talking to Josh Bryant a couple days ago. He's the preeminent subject matter expert in the world on strength and conditioning. And he was saying how the beef that's in this is the best source of protein, bar none. It was an interesting conversation. This bag weighs 6 ounces when it's full. It takes less than 10 minutes to reconstitute it. Makes 1.5 pounds of raw beef. Nobody else is doing this because it's really hard to freeze dry meat, because if there's fat in it, it turns to jelly, it ruins it. Not with these guys. So you don't need, refrigeration. You just put this stuff on the shelf. And we were talking to a guy the other day ago. He keeps it in a 5-gallon bucket in his RV now. And if he needs something to eat, he goes and just grabs it out of there. So carnivalt.com. The coupon code is EATMEAT. You get 10% off. We do not get affiliate payments. If you use the Eat Meat code, though, they know that you came from Survival Dispatch. We get a stipend from these guys, which is very much appreciated. Helps us defer some costs. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I know what I'm forgetting. So we brought back last Sunday the old chapter 3 from the old Survival Dispatch News podcast we did, where we play funny, crazy, zany news, memes, etc. Well, we're bringing it back every Sunday night on my personal podcast, which is on Substack. So it's the C Heaven Show. As you can see right there, my name is Chris Heaven. So it's C.Heaven. And if you go to our Substack, survivaldispatch.news, you'll see recommendations down the side. If you don't see Chris Heaven in there, refresh the page, because they cycle through a whole bunch of them. And you can get the link right there. That'll take you to the Substack. Sign up for it. Khalid and I will be back Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, but we'll be on the C Heaven Show, not Survival Dispatch News. Then we'll be back Monday evening with the full crew. Randy will not be back until the week after next. He's hunting elk right now, so that's why he's been gone this week, and we'll be gone next week. But we will be resuming the Long War series on Monday. Tuesday, Khalid and S2 will be with y'all with his weekly SITREP, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, per usual, the next episodes of the Long War. I think I got it all covered. I think it's time to put a lid on this thing. Between now and Sunday night, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America, and enjoy the closing video.
I identify as an innocent human being.